An extramarital affair led to the sudden resignation of former CIA Director David Petraeus. His affair came to light after a woman in Florida turned over threatening emails to investigators. Those emails were allegedly traced back to Petraeus' mistress and biographer, Paula Broadwell. During their investigation, federal officials say they found classified files in her possession. Retired General Petraeus has denied releasing that sensitive information, so the FBI is trying to determine how Broadwell obtained those classified files. And former FBI agent Jim Conway joins us this morning to offer some perspective on the FBI's involvement in the Petraeus scandal and investigation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Elise. Nice to be here.
And let's backtrack a little bit to how all of this began and how did the FBI become part of this?
Well, you know, we're in a couple stages here, but I think that the important thing, and I've seen a lot of editorializing in the media that, you know, what's the FBI doing in this? Why was the FBI responsible for taking down a general like General Petraeus, Director of Central Intelligence? But the bottom line is the FBI has the responsibility for investigating any kind of a cyber threat, particularly when it involves somebody at a cabinet level position like the DCI. So the FBI had to get involved in this. When you have an individual reporting that there's internet threats focused on, possibly on the Director of Central Intelligence.
So this woman, Jill Kelly is her name, said she was receiving threatening emails. They ended up being from or traced back to Paula Broadwell, and then the affair was uncovered. So what crime were they looking into exactly? They weren't really looking into whether or not there was an affair there.
No, that had nothing to do with it. I mean, that came out and that's been reported in the press. But what the FBI focused on is internet threats specifically directed at the Director of Central Intelligence. And I mean, can you imagine if something like this came in an inbox at the FBI and it was not looked at and something happened? I mean, things like this have to be followed through. And I think that, you know, that's the role and the responsibility of the FBI. We're not interested in affairs, and this thing has gotten kind of salacious, and there's been a lot of editorializing in the media about why is the FBI outing affairs. That had nothing to do with it.
Well, explain the FBI's role then, because a lot of people say, hey, this was a political season and the FBI really kept this quiet and didn't say anything, but that's kind of the guidelines they're supposed to follow, right?
Look, let me make it clear. The FBI is apolitical. The FBI has blinders on. Their interest is investigating serious crimes, possible threats to American citizens, and keeping Americans safe. The fact that this came out, first of all, it was never reported by the FBI. It was reported to Congress, and it was Congress that held press conferences and discussed this.
Well, and Congress was notified kind of on the side by an agent which wasn't following protocol. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, that's interesting, and a lot of that still hasn't come out yet. But the agent, Humphreys, in Tampa, apparently was concerned that this thing was falling on deaf ears and not enough was being done, and he reported it to a congressman. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out in this. But I think it's important for people to understand that it's the role, and it's important for the FBI to look at these things. I mean, isn't that what the American people want? I mean, particularly if it involves the threat on a cabinet level member of our government.
Just in closing, what are your thoughts too then on those classified files? Do you think anything is really going to come of that?
Well, it's going to be interesting. That's kind of a blurry area because Broadwell apparently had some top secret clearances. How did she come in possession of these things? Had they been declassified? I mean, there's a lot of blurry areas there. So it's going to be interesting. And did she get them from General Petraeus, or did they come from other contacts that she had in Afghanistan or Iraq? This whole thing is going to be sorted out, and I'm sure it's going to remain somewhat front and center in the media for the coming weeks.
Jim Conway, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us this morning. All right, to continue to follow this story and the investigation which led to the resignation of David Petraeus from the CIA, stay with Eyewitness News. You can find more news at abc13.com.